Okay, hello. I think I'm recording. I'm going to say yes, I'm recording. So just a quick overview on our lesson plan, instructions, and example. This might be new for you, so I just wanted to quickly walk you through this in video format. You also have this lesson plan, instructions, and example embedded within this assignment as well. So if you can open that up, you could follow along. So basically the expectation is that you are creating a lesson plan on the subject that we are going over. So currently this would be a math lesson plan. You are going to choose a childcare site or type of program. If you're not currently working at a site or type of program, make it up. The age of the children that you're focusing on, the age can be anywhere between 0 to 8 and the number of children of the number of children. It shouldn't say names. I'm going to change that. So only the number of children. We do not need names. For the emphasis, obviously we're choosing math for this lesson plan, but in the future you might be choosing any one of these curriculum areas to focus on. Under developmental domain, right, we have what, 4 to 5 developmental domains, and I've split physical into gross motor and fine motor. So we're looking at if your activity plan or lesson has anything to do with gross motor, then like what part of it has to do with gross motor. If it has anything to do with fine motor, then what part of that activity has to do with fine motor. Same thing for cognitive language, social emotional self-help. You should be hitting at least 3 of these developmental domains, if not all of them. So we have the chart here, and then you just fill out the part of the activity that uses that developmental domain, essentially. Then we have the name of the activity, right? Name it whatever you want to name it. And then we have the objective. Please align your objectives with either the Washington State Early Learning Guidelines Birth to 3. It's linked in the instructions for the assignment, or the CDC developmental milestones, which are also linked in the instructions for the assignment. With both of those resources, you can go to the age group that you are focusing on, look at the milestones that are expected for around that age, and you will align your objective with that milestone. So for example, from the Washington State Early Learning Guidelines, I have a cognitive goal or a cognitive objective, which is think of a different way to do something when confronting a problem, ask an adult for help. We have a language goal or objective, which is ask questions for information or clarification, and then a social emotional goal or objective, which is work with others as part of a team. And all of these are from the Washington State Early Learning Guidelines Birth to 3, which is linked in the assignment. You can also use the CDC developmental milestones. Then we have the activity, which you will provide a brief overview of the activity and describe what the children will do during the activity. I have an example of just a random example. And then for materials, you'll create a list of the materials that you will need before, during, and after the activity. So pencils, paper, any books that you're using to introduce the activity, anything like that. For setup, you're going to describe how the activity will be set up. How do you set up the materials in order or teach your activity without having to leave the children to get things? If another teacher were to look at this, they would know exactly how to set this activity up because your setup section is thorough and makes sense. And then we have procedure. In the procedure, we have little bullet points. So this procedure includes things that you will do before, during, and after the activity. So how will you introduce the activity? Are you going to introduce it during circle time? When you introduce it during circle time or during big group time, will you be using a book, a song, a question? How will you include provocation in this activity? I really personally like to use books to introduce an activity. So during their large group, they're going to be reading a new book, which inspires provocation and questions. And then we go into the activity. So we introduce the activity through some sort of creation of wonderment. And then we get into the activity. where we describe the way the teacher could support children's active learning during this time. What kind of questions, what kind of open-ended questions are you asking throughout this activity? How are you documenting this activity? Things like that. And then for summary closure, so we've looked at before the activity, during the activity, and now the end of the activity. How will you reflect on the activity and bring closure to the learning? So how are you going to wrap up this activity? And how are you going to reflect with the children on what they did, what they learned, things like that. And then also share how you're going to guide children in that transition, that cleanup from that activity and that transition to whatever else is going on that day. If you're not actually in a classroom, make it up. And then for extension and enrichment, right? When we do activities, it's not simply do an activity, leave, forget about it, never think about it again. It's do an activity and connect it to other things in the classroom and other things in that child's life. So how are you going to extend that activity into other aspects of the classroom? Say it's an activity on plants, I don't know. And this plant activity has more of a science focus, but then you want to connect that to math, right? Okay, now we're going to go count the number of leaves on a plant. Okay, now we have a math focus and we've extended it to math, but also we want to extend it to art. So we're going to go on a nature scavenger hunt. We're going to pick some plants and then we're going to create a dried flower scrapbook page. Right? So we're connecting one activity to several different domains, which also, and subject areas. So connecting one activity to several different domains and subject areas and extending that activity to turn into more activities. So it's not just a one and done, it's a one and expand. And then variations for developmental range, right? Children develop at their own rate. So if there is a child who is not exactly at the developmental, like at the opportune developmental period for your activity, how are you going to create accommodations for this child? Or if you think some children will be bored because developmentally they're a little ahead, how will you create accommodations and variations for that child or those children? So that is all for the activity plan or lesson plan. Activity plan and lesson plans, I use them interchangeably. They mean the same thing. Yeah, please let me know if you have any questions, comments, concerns. I am here to help you and guide you. And just a gentle reminder that you'll be creating this lesson plan today or for this week. And then next week, you'll be filming yourself implementing the lesson plan. It does not need to be with children. Like you could do it, I don't know, at home or whatever, but you're going to be filming yourself implementing this lesson plan and how you would do it with children. If you are doing it with children, please make sure to not film the children's faces. That's really it. I'll see everybody next week.